Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the Dracovin Empire. Are you ready to dive back into the world of darkness today? I, your host and guide, Dracovin, are going to grab your hand as we travel through to a world not much different from our own. The world of darkness, where strange supernatural and magical things are just below the surface. Yes, we're also going to be diving into Mage The Ascension. So as we travel, as we zoom through this dimensional gate, through the gauntlet, into the world of darkness, remember, of course, to tip your guide here with liking, subscribing, ringing the bell, as we dive on into the world of darkness once more, and the world of Mage. Today, we're going to be looking at a group that's part of the Disparate Alliance, that's connected with the Council of Nine Traditions in certain ways, also not connected with them. They're an interesting group. The Hollow Ones. So, now that I've mentioned who I'm talking about, and now that we're here in the world of darkness, and in a world so much like our own, who are these Hollow Ones? How can I learn more about them? And mechanically, how could I play one if I really wanted to? Well, of course, the easiest way is to look at Mage The Ascension books. I'm showing up the M20 book here. It is a very good one, too. But from other editions, you, of course, have the Outcast book, A Player's Guide to Pariahs, because Hollow Ones are, to a good degree, pariahs. We'll talk about that. And the other is the tradition book, Hollow Ones, which was part of the tradition books that was produced back in earlier editions. So, hey, we have a number of sources that we can look into this over the years. And of course, M20 will have the most up-to-date information lore-wise. Mechanically, you get an idea of everything. And mechanically, probably do it. So, now we know where we can look deeper into the Hollow Ones, or as they're sometimes known, the Hollowers. Hollower. What would we know about them? Who are these? Well, they're mages. In a lot of ways, they've either been orphaned or rejected by the traditions. But this rejection also is in the same way that they don't want anything to do with the Technocracy. So, rejected or orphaned by the traditions, refusing to be connected with the Technocracy, they're on their own. They are a subculture of ragtags and anti-establishmentarianists who take what they like from the traditions, fuse them together, and just come up with something on their own when it comes to practicing magic. Okay. In this way, also, I will mention they have no dominant sphere, and they are technically part of a group as of the M20 timeline. By the time we get to the M20 timeline, and we have this disparate alliance forming of smaller groups, this thing that's not quite of the Council of Nine Traditions, not quite of the Technocracy, certainly not part of the Fandi, there's something on their own. Hollow Ones gladly joined with them. Hardigan. This is important to talk about because it's an interesting fact that, because they are disparate, joining the Disparate Alliance, they don't really have a cohesive paradigm. In some ways they do, some ways they don't. It's largely dedicated to the idea of romance. That's kind of the idea of where you look at the Hollows. And this isn't grocery store, novel, Fabio on the cover type romance. No. Gothic horror, tragic romance, mysterious whimsy, that kind of romance. They invoke their magic with watered-down versions of classical spells, or wrote spells borrowed from other traditions. A good example would be something when a Hermetic Mage would use a Pentacle of Mercury in a ritual. A Hollow might just draw like a nice star on a corner with eyeliner and just use that. So, the picture here of someone drawing something could be something they're doing, but it's probably a version of a ritual that would be much larger in the more traditional sense of magic and magic use. And this is just a version of it that they've developed. Many refuse to believe in the Ascension, and those that possibly do believe it can only be achieved when the Council casts away their prejudices and unify into a single group. So it's sort of like, either they're like, there's no Ascension, or they're like, well, I think there is an Ascension, but like, until all of us who practice come together, unify, become like not warring with each other, we ain't gonna get it. And Order of Reason, aka the people that have become Technocracy, sought to bring all concepts under its heel, and that fact that this has influence amongst HoloOnes. They decided long ago that basically every member should learn magic on an individual basis. It's this idea of individualism, like the council in their own ways, and the Order of Reason with everybody should be unified under our thing, and they're like, hold a second, this is an individual craft, we all learn on our own. So the kind of foci used is incredibly wide. It could be clothing, makeup, tattoos, prop occultism. Several traditional mages kind of look down on a lot of these practices and regard it as diluted versions of their own hard-earned rituals. Many more traditional flavors of familiars can actually be in this group too, with cats, owls, and ravens. Ooh. I have to look at history. And this is an interesting one, because we can look at the kind of history as the Hollow Ones believe it, and the history that we have on paper. As we kind of believe it, they have this goth rock image that is actually pretty popular amongst most of the Hollow Ones. But the actual tradition is older than that. And there are influences that date back in that into things as far back as classical horror writers, Shelley, Poe. But the true essence of what would become the Hollow Ones kind of comes from opium lounges of the 1800s and 1900s, and the seance tables of Victorian mediumship. There are those amongst the Hollow Ones that claim it goes back even further. Given to eclectic scattershot approach of hollow magic, this could be partially true. However, most agree that hollow philosophy did not define itself. The philosophy of their group and their unifiedness really didn't come about until the 1920s. That, despite the facts that learnings can be found back in works of earlier generations, in those literary works I mentioned, there are even some that claim that Lord Byron was the first to ascribe to hollow traditions. Others say that's rubbish. So it's this complex mess. Now, there are historians that do state that hollow philosophy, in some way, has always been around. Again, it's up to interpretations. But some state late period Roman period, various art-inclined emperors like Nero, as proof that the philosophy that would become hollow philosophy has very deep roots. Most of the more traditional mages are quick to dismiss as this hogwash of the Hollow Ones who claim history as not their own. So they're basically like, hey, no, this is going too far. But again, the result of this current form were results of rejection and unfit traditions and crafts that tradition to join the conventions and were not exterminated by the Order of Reason. So, again, some of these groups that make up the Hollow Ones could have ancient connections. And their philosophies that are now deeply ingrained in the Hollow Ones could have originated from there. Did they? But these are groups that weren't allowed into the, with the convocation and the Order of Reason, which is murdered. And they've gone under several names: the Abandoned, the Disparate, Faithless Ones, the Sepulchre, the Doubters. They're basically just on the fringes of traditions. Accepted but not tolerated. Now we hit the modern era. And we get to the 1920s. The prosperity after the First World War. The wealthy people search for means to spend their money. Serious studies in parapsychology, as well as new trends within society, birthed the Hollow Ones. And when Prohibition hit, and the new life feeling extended into social realms, when it demanded the same rights as men, many of the mages that awakened during this time period didn't want to bow down to the traditions or the technocratic community, instead exploring magic in their own way. Then in World War II, many of these Hollow Ones fell prey to nefarious corruption. In the following era, they managed to have a new rush of new mages join them, and they're faced with political repercussions from the sleeper U.S. government under McCarthy. In the 1970s, the Council of Nine discussed the possibility of including the disparate Hollow Ones but could not settle on a deal and instead opted to latch the Hollow Ones. Up to today, there are voices in both parties that ask for unification of the Hollow Ones within the traditions, but they never quite managed to be heard enough or organize things enough. So, there are those that are like, we should just stay separate, but there are also those that are like, hey, you could join with us and kind of form your own traditions. No, but still, if you look at what Hollowers are, the Hollow Ones, they are really more modern age, but also kind of a rejection. A rejection of both the modern age and a product of it. A very interesting part to be in. Many Hollow Ones despise the frantic pace of modern life. The too bright yet too tacky technology of mass marketing, the banal stratification of society. They cling to notions of more elegant age. They sip absinthe, play at poetry, indulge fetishistic fashion, and allow the trends to lead them to death's door. The reckoning that is at hand only leads credence to this belief. If the world is spiraling into destruction, they'll be the ones to ultimately ready for its ultimate demise. Now, there are some organization within the Hollow Ones. Not really the way you'd think about it. Since they're functionally not a tradition like we have on the Council of Nine, they don't occupy a seat there, and they have no recognition among those traditions, technically, and the other mages consider them pain, they're just sort of on their own. They don't have that connection to groups that would have good organization. They don't have supporting bases in this way, a lot of ways. They don't have extensive libraries of history. Instead, they have romantic poets, Victorian spiritualists, 1920s counterculture, and modern goth culture as their architecture. So yeah, with the traditions, just kind of feeling their pain, and, having a lot of resources, it's very different. And the Hollow Ones themselves, if we look at them, can't agree on foundations. They're more concerned with what they get out of it. So they're a hodgepodge of subculture. They take what they like and discard the rest, and apply it to people, philosophies, magic, and belief. Cliques. These rule the Hollow Ones. Instead of forming political factions or avatar-driven groups, they hang out in small clubs or social groups. They are fusively competitive and jealous, but they can put aside their distances and work together sometimes. Since Hollow Ones often come from broken houses, dysfunctional families, whether wealthy or poverty-stricken, they indulge in whatever sorts of passive rebellion they can find. And that means hanging out with people who have survived similar experiences and taking up the same candlestick. There is no hierarchy. There are young goths and dead goths, but old goths are just pretenders. Hollow Cliques are their only real families they know, and they fiercely protect them. But without any political vision, they shrug off any attempts of real organization. About the closest they come to any sort of recognition in their ranks is when they choose someone to speak for a clique, or when they complete for an unusual piece of arcana, lore, or trivia that in an attempt to be spooky or knowledgeable about occult esotericism. So it's again like they associate themselves together in a way, but they're also individualistic. These small cliques, individual groups. The messy organization of the Hollow Ones. Now there are two major factions, and we can mention some of the cliques too here. The two major factions are the Counselors and the Revolutionaries. The Counselors are Hollow Ones who, despite the fact that life sucks, the world is going to end, still manage to care. They tend to agree that Technocracy sucks, and most, without a few factions, feel the same about Marauders and Nephandians. They consider the Council of Nine mystic traditions as the least offensive of the evils of the magic world. They believe that if the snooty traditionalists would accept that they have something to offer other than magic, which isn't ending but changing, they could have basically help the world head towards a new era. So, yeah. The Revolutionaries, their worldview is very easy to grasp. They see the world with all its rust and acid rain, greed and hate, unchecked capitalism, nefarious media, and social propaganda, and say, the technocracy sucks. And they see the negative impact of religious beliefs and wars it causes and decides equally, their traditions suck too. Marauders and Nephandia are even worse. All that's left is to scream, you all suck, You're screwing up reality and opt out. They tend to abhor the company of non-hallowed mages and prefer the company of ghosts, fairies, and vampires, and tend to resent any guidance the council mages offer. Now, I'm not going to get into all the cliques and talk about each of them, but I will go over a list of different cliques. They follow fads, new ways of thinking. They'll find one or a handful that makes sense of them in their own personal stories. Basically, fads happen, and some of them develop into cliques, filling in niches in the world. There's the elementals, patheists, incognitos, voodoo gangsters, soundwave masters, railroad riders, social terrorist punks, moles, the outsiders, which are kind of an interesting group we're going to talk about here in a second, and the masters, which are kind of an interesting group which we're going to talk about here in a second. The outsiders is basically a group of other cliques that are kind of even a little outside in the traditional hollow ones in a lot of ways. Yeah, they have their own kind of sub-cliques within this. They are gaunts, mangers, bloodbags, glamour whores. They tend to hang out with awakened beings a little bit sometimes too. So, yeah. Gaunts with restless dead and dead kind of things. Mangers, shapeshifters, bloodbags, vampires, glamour whores, fae. Changes. So you see, these outsiders are part of there that are part of those revolutionaries. So they're part of a kind of faction in there, but they are smaller groups within it. And then the Hollow One Masters do technically exist, because there are weird paradox within the Hollow Ones. They're at once the most powerful and lowest profile members of this tradition. Young members might strive to gain a reputation. The elders are only known by wild and often contradictory rumors. While new to the magic world compared to all the other organizations out there, the Hollow Ones have had a few decades under their belt. They were a youngster who wore black in the 90s. There is an elder who grew up in the 70s punk scene. Or the beatniks, or the flappers of the 20s. Phantom strangers of the night, they show up, pass around some music, deliver a few snide but true statements, or bon mots, and then disappear. With a high arcane reina, they love to flaunt their mysteriousness. So, they are, technically a group, they're the elders of this group, but they're also, like, mysterious and also individualist, and it's also, they're just Hollow Ones. They're still just Hollow Ones. But, there you go. That's the Hollow Ones. An interesting group in the Disparate Alliance. Because they are just this... They're in a way the everything else group a lot of times, but they are in a way also a group. They're organized, yet not. They're united, yet not. They're got some kind of unified ideas about how things work, but they don't. It's a mess. Disparateness. A ragtag group. But, certainly speaking, they are an interesting ragtag group. That they've fused so much together, and they've looked in this more modern version of everything. They see the wrongs of the mage world, and they say, let's just do something else. Something that we can maybe feel is better. Something that we feel like is better for people and reality. And we're going to fight for it, and we're going to push it forward. And that's us. That's the Hollow Ones. The anti-establishmentarians. That's a great word for it. And also a really long spelling word, which I'm probably not pronouncing correctly because I never pronounce anything correctly, whether it's a foreign word or even English. I hope you enjoyed learning about them and seeing what kind of group they are and how, certainly speaking, they're probably a fun group to play. Probably piss off all the traditional members of traditions if you're in a group of mages that you're hanging out with, because you're tolerated, you're assumed to be part of the overall mage culture, and you're not doing anything necessarily bad, you're not helping the Technocracy, but God, you're... That's how it works. Anyway, we'll leave that there. I hope you enjoyed joining me today. Remember to check out all of my stuff. I put up my schedule on my social medias and my YouTube channel. My social media being my Discord, my Blue Sky, my Twitter /X. whatever I'm doing for when I'm going live, to record stuff over on Twitch or doing games or anything like that, tabletop or gaming related, that schedule's up there. It's a little bit more open-ended, which you can check out on my social media changes, but my YouTube schedule, which is also up there for when things are being uploaded, I do let people know ahead of time for the week what's being uploaded. That stuff, definitely I can recommend. It's going to be pretty exact there, with only sometimes if there's a video issue or upload issue that you change the schedule. Other than checking out my social media, do remember to do things that like the video, as I said earlier, like subscribe, ring the bell, leave a comment. Have any of you put a Hollow One out there, or been in a game with a Hollow One as a fellow player? Let me know. I personally haven't had that experience, but I've had a lot of Mage games over the years. It was the World of Darkness that I did play, but played probably the least out of the 3 big ones. So, my experience with Mage never got into Hollow Ones. Unfortunately. Never had a chance to. Anyway, I think that's everything today. Remember to check out all my other stuff. I have live plays of various things. You can check out my old live play of World of Darkness and Legacies of Kain. It's a vampire game, but it's World of Darkness. I just finished up a Pathfinder game. I do some D&D stuff. But those are all live plays I recommend checking out. Discussing Tabletop Saturday at 6. And I think that's it. Those are the shout-outs I have to do. Things I really should say. You know, I try to figure out the right things. Anyway, I'm going to get going. I'm probably going to hang on Twitch chat a little bit, maybe do another video, all those kind of things. But until the next time we dive into the World of Darkness, talk about Mage, or one of the other factions within the World of Darkness, I bid all of you out there a deep and wonderful farewell.